Hey friend! Thanks for rolling out your mat today and spending some time with me. Today we're going to do a really quick mobilizing routine that gets into the shoulders, the spine, the hips, and is a great prep for any of the other workouts in the video library or just as a standalone workout on its own when you're feeling a little sticky and a little tight. Let's get going. You're going to start down onto your back. And let's begin with the feet nice and wide. So mat distance apart if you're not on a mat, maybe a little wider than shoulder distance apart. And I'm going to go ahead and take my arms out to a nice wide letter T, and I'm just going to start to windshield wiper my knees from side to side. So again, we're assuming we're a little short on time today. So taking as much time as you need in these positions, but also knowing the movement experience I'm leading you through today might feel a little faster than what we're used to, or with a little fewer repetitions. But if any of the movements feel really good to you, feel free to steal them from me and integrate them into your daily practice when you want to spend a little bit more time getting into the parts of the body that need a little bit more attention. Let's do 2 more each side. I'm thinking about reaching the knee that's going down into the midline away, getting a nice little dynamic stretch to the front of the hip, and over, and one more time, letting the pelvis move, letting the spine start to move. And now I'm going to take my knees away from you, okay? And then I'm going to take the fingertips on, so this is my right side, my right knee is reaching forward and down, my right hand is going to be moving. I'm going to roll over onto my side, and then I'm going to roll back. Now, if this is a little too much on your knee, you can go ahead and sneak the other foot behind, or you can stack your knees a little bit more, which will reduce the stretch on the front of the hip, that right front of the hip. And I'm going to do 2 more, rolling, just starting to incorporate a little bit more upper back rotation. And then this next time I'm going to stay on my side. I'm going to keep whatever design in the legs is working. So this one feels pretty good to me. If you need to adjust your legs, then I'm going to begin, go for it. Begin to circle my arm 3 times in each direction. If the arm doesn't touch and skim the floor, no worries. Work in whatever range feels doable to your body. I'm thinking about following my fingertips with my eyes a bit, so I start to move my head, mobilizing my neck, and 2. And 1, and I'm going to pour myself back onto my back and then set up for side 2. I'm going to let my knees knock over to my right, might be your left if you're doing the second side. So my left knee is going forward. I'm going to start to roll onto my right side, reaching my left fingertips, and then roll back. For all these little roly-poly mobilizing movements, I'm just thinking about how heavy my body can be. Sort of imagining that I'm this muscle-less skeleton rolling around on the floor, really giving in to gravity. I'm going to do 1 more time. And again, if you need to adjust the leg position, if there's any discomfort in the joints, go for it. And then we're going to start to circle the arm about 3 times in each direction. It could look like this. It could look like this. It could look like somewhere in between. Let's reverse that direction. Let your head be really heavy, so there's no need to lift the head up as you roll. If that means you don't quite make it onto your side, so be it. And then come back. I'm going to bring my feet a little bit closer together. I'm going to grab the backs of my knees and I'm going to rock and roll up to sit. If that way doesn't work for you, just make your way up to a seated position. I'm going to scoot quite far back on my mat. If you're not on a mat, just scoot far back in your movement space, because we will scoot a little bit forward doing this. I'm going to take my feet again wide, so a little bit wider than my shoulders, and then use my fingertips behind me to prop up. We're going to repeat a similar movement than what we just did on our back. I'm going to take my knees over and then come back up. So we're getting a little hip mobility, and totally normal with this one to kind of scoot forward on your mat. So it's a little silly, so you can just walk your hands with you. Now, if this is feeling doable and good, and if you want a little extra challenge, you can bring your hands up, and what this will do is kind of crawl you forward on your mat. or in your movement space. Okay, this is where I start just like sort of getting, sounds a little funny, but like getting in touch with like my little inner child and being like, this is silly. And it feels quite good on the hips. Let's do one more. And then come back, and then I'm going to scoop myself back, setting up for a second round with a little spinal twist. So again, setting up in the same position. This time I'm going to keep my fingertips behind me. I'm going to let my knees knock over to my left, and then I'm going to take my right arm around the corner and slide it long. Coming back up, and then taking my arm back behind me, knees go back up to the ceiling. I'm going to take my knees over to my right, let my left arm sweep over, and then reach to the diagonal. And coming back up. Let's do that 2 more times each side. So knees go over one way, you take your arm up and around, and then reach. My opposite hand is staying on the mat, elbow bending, and coming back up and over, around, and reach, and up. Let's do 1 more each side, up and over, around, little spiral twist. You could even look back towards your back toes, sort of finishing off that spiral, up and around, reach, big twist, and coming back up. I'm going to crisscross my ankles and then come over into an all-fours position. Again, if those transitions don't work for you, come up with a way that does. I'm going to bring my hands right underneath my shoulders and my knees right underneath my hips. If this kind of wrist movement doesn't feel good to your body, some other options are to come onto your knuckles, or coming down onto your forearms could also be an interesting option too, if your wrists don't appreciate or like that much load at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and start to round the head and tail, and then find a nice length and arch through the spine. Just 3 more, rounding and arching. Feel how pushing the floor away towards you might facilitate a little bit more rounding through the spine. Pulling the floor towards you with your hands, a little more arch. 1 more time. And arch, and then just find the midpoint between those 2 places. We're going to start to wag the head and tail right to left, going for a gentle little side bend. You can look back towards your hip. You can look straight down at the floor. You can use your hands to push and pull your spine. 1 more each direction. And down. I'm going to take my right fingertips and slide them on the floor behind my left arm. I'm going to start to skim those fingertips on the floor, and I'm going to see if I can get my right shoulder and my right ear as close to the floor as possible. Push the floor away and bring the shoulders back to level. Let's do that 2 more times. Little thread the needle, rotate, and up. Last one. Rotate, and up. I'm going to go ahead and take my hand down, switching over to the other side. I'm going to reach my left fingertips, and back up, and left, and up, and 1 more time, and up. Staying on all fours, I'm going to go ahead and take 1 foot on the outside of my hand. Doesn't really matter which one, we'll do both sides. And I'm going to let my hips sink forward, lifting my chest up a little bit for a little hip stretch. And then walk my hands back, flexing through the front foot, trying to straighten that leg until I feel a little hamstring stretch. Let's do 3 more. Rocking forward and back. Doesn't matter how deep you go. Doesn't matter how straight your leg is. And 2. And 1. From there, whatever foot is back, I'm going to swing it backwards, and then I'm going to come up into this kind of half kneeling, 1 leg long position. So if you're facing away from your camera right now and you want to turn to face me, go for it. Just kind of keep track on what you're doing right and left. I know it's a lot of turning facing away from the camera. I'm going to slide my hand down my thigh. I'm going to feel a nice little inner thigh stretch and come back up. Now I'm going to turn my foot out, my knee goes out, and then take a little sort of weird half kneeling lunge position. And I'm just going to go back and forth between those two movements a few times. So I'm turning my thigh bone in and out, getting a little bit of mobility through the hip joint. I'm also getting a little bit of movement through my spine. Let's do 2 more. Up and over. And a lunge, kind of spinning on the ball of my foot, but you can make this movement happen in whatever way suits you. And lunge. I'm going to come on my knees. I'm going to come back to all fours and set up for side 2. So I'm taking my opposite foot on the outside, my other hand. I'm going to take a lunge, stretching my chest forward, and then flexing back. And forward. And back. No need to find the biggest stretch you've ever had in your whole life right now. This is really meant as just like a mobilizing, dynamic stretching warm-up. Give the muscles a little experience of length and give the joints some movement. Let's do 1 more. And then ending up back in your lunge, you're going to take whatever foot is back and swing it back behind you so you find your new front coming up. This leg in parallel feels doable to me. You could also have this leg in turnout and then you just won't have as much movement that you need to do to achieve the next shape. So we're going to take the arm up and over and back up and then turn the foot out and take a little lunge. And up and over. And out. A little lunge. Let's do 2 more. Up and over. And a little lunge. And 1 more. Up and over. And then a little lunge, getting that inner thigh to stretch. I'm going to face this direction now, and I'm going to find a little lengthened child's pose with my legs in parallel. So for my body, that means that my hips don't make it all the way back towards my heels, and that's fine. I'm just trying to find a lengthened position here, giving the shoulders a little stretch, the spine a little bit of length in flexion. I'm going to round forward. I'm going to feel my hair in my face. I'm going to let my hips sag and lift my chest skyward. I'm going to come back, tuck the toes under, and then I'm going to shoot myself into a plank position. I'm going to go back into sometimes what's called like a beast position. I'm going to pedal through my feet a little bit, getting a little stretch, a little mobility on the bottoms of the feet and the ankles. Tap the knees down, untuck the toes, and sit back onto your heels. Let's do that 2 more times. I'm going to round forward, finding that nice extension through the spine. You can bend your elbows a little bit. Come back into that little child's pose, all fours position, tuck the toes, and then shoot right forward into a plank. I'm going to go back into a hovering plank and then pedal through my ankles and feet a little bit. If you want to give your feet a little point here, that might be a fun idea. I'm going to rest my knees down, untuck my toes and back. Let's do that 1 more time. Forward. Let the chest open. Come back, tuck the toes, shoot right on into that plank. I'm going to go back into that hovering plank and just pedal through the feet a little bit. From there, start to stretch the legs, finding a pike position or a downward facing dog. And let's pedal again for 8, 7. Really getting a stretch on the tops and the bottoms of the feet. Waking up those toes. And 2, and 1. Tap the knees down. This time take the big toes together, knees wide apart. Settle back into a lengthened child's pose. Take a few moments to breathe, settle. Feel all the energy and space you've just created for yourself. And then roll the spine up. Fix your hair, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.